You're listening to WLPN 105.5 FM Chicago, and you're listening to Labor Express Radio, Chicago's only English-language labor news and current affairs radio program. News for working people by working people. I'm your host, Jeremy Acero, and this is the Sunday, February 17th, 2019 edition of Labor Express. On tonight's episode of Labor Express, Chicago teachers keep making history. Last December, we reported on the first ever strike by charter school teachers anywhere at the Acero Charter School Network in Chicago. That strike, lasting less than a week, achieved major gains for teachers and students alike, including reduced class sizes, better, more equitable pay, better resources for special education students, and sanctuary protections for undocumented students. Over the past month, we reported that charter school educators in Los Angeles followed the Chicago example and also won a strike which lasted 8 days with significant contract gains. Now the field of battle has once again returned to Chicago. On Tuesday, February 5th, teachers and support staff at the Chicago International Charter School Network in Chicago, or CICS for short, launched the second charter school teachers strike in Chicago history and the third in world history. On Friday, that strike entered its 9th day, making it the longest charter school strike ever. On tonight's episode of Labor Express, we'll hear about why the teachers at CICS decided their only option was to strike and about the creative actions they have taken during the strike. I will also briefly report on the successful conclusion of the Denver teachers' strike, which won gains for those teachers after 4 days. Lastly, we'll hear about the ongoing regular protests being held at Gary Chicago International Airport, which is being utilized by ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to deport undocumented immigrants from the Chicago and Northwest Indiana area. But first, we have an international labor news update from our friends at Radio Labor based in Canada. This particular episode of Solidarity News is very relevant to our discussion of the teachers' strikes tonight. Mark Belanger of Radio Labor talks with David Edwards, the General Secretary of Education International, a global union of teachers, about why he believes the best bulwark against the rise of right-wing populism and authoritarianism is organized teachers.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labor.
Hello, I'm Mark Belanger. Behind crises such as global warming and the rise of authoritarian populism is a lack of brave, informed leadership. The solution is to help teachers educate the next generation. That is a central message being promoted by Education International. EI is the global union for teachers and other education workers. It has some 32 million members in 172 countries. David Edwards is Education International's General Secretary.
There is a general feeling right around the world that the planet itself is going through a leadership crisis. That at the root of the environmental crisis, the root of the financial crisis, the root of the education crisis, the root of the refugee crisis, is a leadership crisis. And what I feel is that at a time when it has become so much easier to communicate, people are trying to find opinions that support their own underlying convictions or underlying their own opinions in many ways. It's not a time particularly when ideas get challenged. It's a time that is very easily manipulated by a certain type of leadership, which is an opportunistic leadership that leans towards authoritarianism, that drives fear, that plays off of people's fears about the future, their insecurities about the present. And it tries to propose easy, if not completely false, solutions to the challenges that we're all facing. As we think about this sort of vacuum in terms of global leadership, and we think about all these different decisions and choices that our students have to make, that our communities need to make, that our politicians need to have the courage to make. But yet, if you look to the opinion pages, if you listen to the speeches, you find that there isn't really the kind of leadership that is anchored in the values and the principles that have gotten us out of the dark ages. I think there's sort of like an anti-intellectualism. People don't have the time to listen to deep or long analyses. They don't have the time to sort of try on different ways of thinking or knowing. And I already mentioned there's sort of this selective listening to things that support what we already, or the biases that we already hold. If you look around the world and you look at the crises and you think, well, if the politicians aren't going to be able to do this, the religious leaders aren't going to be able to do this, The young people are organizing themselves, but they don't necessarily have the structures. There are social movements that are afoot. Many are fantastic in terms of drawing attention to a given thing at a given moment, but they don't necessarily have the structures, the policies, the capacity, the legitimacy to transform those into action. The only profession that has both the wherewithal in terms of the legitimacy that they have because of where they come from, their communities, because they know people in their communities, the knowledge and wisdom that they have because they know their disciplines, they know history, they know their areas, the way they can communicate because they've been trained in communicating and their job is basically to communicate and to think, to help people think and to question. But all of that anchored in an ethos, in a sort of an ethical frame about why we do all of this and how do we marshal that knowledge for the common good. And I think those are teachers. And more specifically, I believe it is the organized, unionized global teacher movement that needs to lead right now because we are so connected, across all of the countries where we operate. We're in those communities. We can share what's happening with each other. We can speak truth to power. We can educate. We can dream. We can stand up and resist. We can organize, mobilize. We can vote. We can run for office. We can do a number of different things that I don't believe, if I look around the world, another profession or another vocation or another group of people that are solely committed to a singular purpose like we are, a couple of very important purposes. So it's really down to us. It's educators and their unions that are going to have to take the lead.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for working people by working people, and that was our weekly International Labor News update from Solidarity News, produced by Radio Labor in Canada. For more on Radio Labor, see their website at radiolabor.net. Last December, the teachers at the Acero Charter School Network made history. Charter school teachers in Chicago have been making history for a decade now already, rapidly organizing these quasi-privatized schools to the point where a significant segment of the charter school industry in the city is now union. This is an incredible turn of events, given that one of the primary rationales for the creation of charter schools by their proponents was to circumvent union protections for teachers. The failure of charter schools as educational institutions and the dismal working conditions they offer staff has led teachers at school after school to successfully organize. Until last December at Acero, teachers repeatedly called administrators bluff in negotiations, and almost always at the 11th hour before a planned strike, management would agree to a union contract with improved educational outcomes for students and improved working conditions for staff. Then on December 3rd, 2018, the management at Acero apparently thought they were prepared to do something that no other charter operator had yet dared to do, and they forced their teachers out on strike. 6 days later, it was clear that their gamble was lost, and it was the teachers and their supporters, the parents and students, who had been prepared for a fight. Acero management signed a contract that conceded to nearly all the teachers' demands. Unfortunately, it seems charter operators have not learned the lesson of the Acero example, but charter school teachers sure have. In Los Angeles, almost simultaneous with the LAUSD teachers' strike, teachers at the Accelerated Schools Charter School Network launched an 8-day strike that was likewise a success. Now the front lines of the fight for improved educational resources for students and working conditions for teachers in charter schools has returned to Chicago. On Tuesday, February 5th, after 9 months of fruitless negotiations, the teachers at the Chicago International Charter School Network in Chicago, or CICS for short, which runs 4 schools with over 2,000 students, went out on strike. Labor TV and Labor Express radio reporters have been out on the picket lines to hear from teachers and support staff about why they felt a strike was necessary. Steve Dalber of Labor TV was at a rally of CICS teachers the night before the strike was launched. He spoke to several CICS staff, as well as CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates, about their concerns. In this segment, you will hear teachers discuss the main issues you will hear raised repeatedly during tonight's program: concern over large class sizes, lack of funding and focus on special education needs in students, resources and support personnel cuts, staff turnover due to pay inequity with regular public schools, misuse of funds provided by state, and high administrative costs and pay for management.
My name is Amanda Legner. I'm a paraprofessional in the transition room at Northtown Academy. Our program has been running without a budget. We provide our special needs students with extra support that they need to transition from high school into the real world. students who are 18 to 22. We work on employable skills. We work on job applications. We work on social skills, professional skills. And our program has been running out of the pockets of the teachers in our classroom and is now being threatened to be cut, even though there is a need at a school with 25% special ed population.
25%?
25%.
What's the rationale for holding the money back?
They have given us no rationale. We ask and ask about where our budget is, and we keep getting sent to the next person, and just being told, just being given the runaround. Special ed services are not being funded properly.
Hi, my name is Lisa Kane. I'm a counselor at CICS Northtown Academy.
And what kinds of problems are you having?
The main issue that we're having within our contract is that management has threatened at the table to cut student services, that social workers and counselors from our 4 schools in order to pay for the contract. We consider that to be an unacceptable situation. You don't cut services from students who need it the most in order to fund your own boardrooms, your own bonuses, and to keep money in reserves that doesn't need to be there. Counselors and social workers are on the front lines in our schools every single day providing service our students' needs. We provide academic counseling, we provide college counseling, career counseling, we do mental health crisis and conflict resolution. We do the things that need to be done so our students can be successful in the classrooms.
And are you getting any support from parents and students?
We have been getting support from students and parents. One of the main selling points of our schools that parents and students like is our model, that we have a class counselor for each grade level, that we have 2 social workers. We provide actually more student services than at CPS. It's one thing that our schools like, that our parents and our families like.
Oh, thank you.
Jen Conant. I'm out here this morning because I know that CICS can do better by our schools. When I started in 2012, I started with 15 new employees. There are 3 of us left today. So the teacher attrition rate has been terrible, and that's unacceptable. It creates instability in our schools, and it means that we can't provide the best education possible for our students. We know that CICS has $36 million that should go into our classrooms instead of into reserves. So I'm out here today to say that that is no longer acceptable, that we are changing the status quo, and that they need to do better by our students, our schools, and our staff.
What's tomorrow look like?
We'll be out on the picket lines at 6 a.m. if we don't reach a deal with management tonight.
Is your leadership meeting with management again today?
Yes, we are bargaining this afternoon and this evening.
All right, thank you.
Stacey Davis Gates. It's clear. Oklahoma, Los Angeles, all around this country, we have educators who are using their ability to leverage the negotiating table to provide resources for their students. Smaller class sizes, wraparound support, special education services. These are things that are infinitely important to how we provide a quality education to our students. It is clear that throughout this country, after years of austerity, after years of policy that protect rich people, marginalized working people, that our classrooms have borne the brunt of that negative impact. The spate of teacher strike, it makes it very clear that when we are in solidarity, when we unify, and we use all of our tools to win resources, that our students actually win, our communities actually win, the labor movement actually win, and by virtue of that, America wins. Tomorrow we'll be out here if there's no contract settlement. We are going to stand on these picket lines and demand resources for our students, resources that they have. They have nearly a $40 million surplus, and we believe that in a time of great need, to have a surplus that with that amount of money in it is amoral.
Who's teaching the classes today?
Today, our members will be in the classroom teaching. However, if there isn't an agreement reached tonight, our members will be outside on these picket lines. Management has threatened to pick up substitute teachers and put them in our classrooms tomorrow at a rate of pay that they are refusing to pay our PSRPs who come here every single day and provide invaluable service to our school communities.
So you're going in a while?
We're going in about 5 minutes together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio, which calls the only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, and our coverage of a strike by teachers at the CICS Charter School Network in Chicago. Steve Dauber was back out on the picket lines the next morning on the first day of the strike. He spoke with science teacher Keith Willett about what had occurred at the negotiations the previous day and the first day out on the picket lines.
They went through bargaining until about 10 p.m. yesterday, but CEP had no counter or nothing brought to the table on compensation, benefits, or working conditions. Our CEO of CEP, Leandra Kahn, did not show up to the table at all yesterday, which was not what we would like. So at 10 p.m. last night, they didn't bring anything fair to us, so we announced at that time that we would be partaking in the strike this morning.
What's the spirit like?
Spirit's great. A lot of people are ready to go. The email we got last night about how Leandra did not show up and that they had nothing for us just lit a bigger fire for us. So we're here to fight for our students. We're here to fight for not these students, the students in our other schools, students around the country. It's time for change.
What do you anticipate the turnout going to be student-wise?
We have one student here already. Some other students said they would come and support us. We haven't seen any other students. We haven't seen students on the bus to come to try to cross. So I think we're ready to go. The students were with us yesterday when we told them all about it, and we've been talking to them and giving them the facts of what's actually going on, where the money is and why we can't have things for them in our school.
Do you anticipate any substitute workers showing up today?
We don't. The company that CICS hired came out this morning and said that they are canceling the subs that they had for the CICS schools.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Steve also spoke with Chris Giovannis, spokesperson for the Chicago Teachers Union.
This management has set up a series of shell corporations. They've got 3 at the Civitas schools alone. CEP, Civitas Education Partners, Civitas itself, and CICS's management. So literally upwards of 30% of the dollars that come in as public funds for public education get siphoned right back out by management. And what are they doing with that money? Well, they've invested about $20 million of that with the company that belongs to their former CEO, president, and co-founder, an individual who also served as their treasurer. That is not the only kind of insider finance deal that this operation is running here. The rest of that money is going either into what they call reserves, what we call cash hoarding, literally, again, siphoned off from the public dollars that are supposed to fund students' education, and instead going to vastly expand this bloated bureaucracy at the very top that has absolutely nothing to do with student education. So we've seen CICS's, Chicago International Charter Schools, top bureaucracy go from 4 six-figure salaries in 2017 to 14 today. Those people have nothing to do with the education of our children and everything to do with the pinstripe patronage racket that this management operation is running that has everything to do with lining their own pockets at our students' expenses.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people. Labor Express radio reporter Michelle Burke was also at the picket lines in the second week of the strike and talked to several of the striking CICS teachers, support staff, and a parent. In the following segment, you will hear once again the strikers discuss the primary issues behind the strike: unmanageable class sizes, lack of resources and attention for special education students, pay inequity with regular public school teachers that leads to high turnover, and a general misappropriation of funds in which top administrators reap the benefits at the expense of teachers and students. You will frequently hear mention the name Elizabeth Shaw, CEO of the CICS Charter School Network.
Good morning. My name is Jen Conan, and I'm a math teacher at CICS Northtown Academy. We are here today because we know that CICS has the money and resources to do right by our students and to end this strike. Teachers want to go back to their classrooms, but the status quo is no longer acceptable. CICS needs to use the taxpayer dollars that they have been given that should be invested in the classroom. They should actually put it where the money belongs. We know CICS increased management fees by $1.2 million this year. That's a 25% increase. That money should not be going into management's pockets. It should be going into reducing our class sizes and providing adequate counseling and social work services for our students. We are going to be out here every day until we make sure that CICS comes to the table and does right by our students. Thank you.
My name is Derek Brown. I'm a paraprofessional at Wrightwood Elementary. We are out here today, and we have standing solidarity for the time that we have stood out here on the purpose and in the intention that there's $36 million that is going to the corporate greed suckers that are taking away from our students. We will no longer stand to the side and watch our students suffer while those who are in high position prosper. It is time that Elizabeth Shaw steps from out of the darkness and come into the light and bargain in fairness with us, that we might receive a fair contract for not only just us as the staff, but for our students and the resources that they need to be successful members of society. It is time, as they use an old religious analogy, it is time to let the light from the lighthouse shine on you.
My name is Hannah Feinstein. I teach biology and chemistry at Ralph Ellison High School on the south side. We know that people use their time and their money to show importance to things. We have given up our time, we have given up our money during this picket, right? We're not getting paid during this. We are putting in our time, fighting for our students, fighting for what's right, while Elizabeth Shaw has not even turned her face up. So she is not giving us her time. She is spending her money on bonds and on corporate wants instead of on our students. We know that she is sending CICS people to target our south side schools more than our north side schools, right? That is how she is choosing to spend her time and her.
Hello, my name is Austin Mallory. First name is spelled Austin, last name Mallory. I am a physical ed teacher at Chicago Quest High School, and we are here to show that we are ready for the fight. We will do whatever it takes. It is ridiculous that our kids do not have the proper resources and the proper tools and the adequate tools so they can succeed and be successful in life. And so because of that, we will do whatever it takes, however long it takes, for us to get what they deserve. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Diaz. I am a school social worker at CICS Northtown. We have been on the picket lines for 5 days now. Would we love to be in the building working with our students? Of course. But when CICS is threatening to cut essential student services that our undocumented students use, services that our homeless students utilize, services for special education students, services for our students with mental illnesses, then we will remain on the picket line fighting for as long as necessary. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Shaw has not showed up to bargaining at all. So Elizabeth Shaw, I urge you to be present, show up, give our students the funding and the resources that they deserve. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lakeisha Paul, and I'm one of the parents at Wrightwood. We are here because we are asking for smaller classrooms for our children. 30 students is too much. We're asking for services for our children. Kids that need IEP are not getting them. My son needs reading. We are not receiving it. Our teachers are working with one hand behind their back. The parents are tired of constantly adding resources to the school. Can you please give us some of that money you got? Can we please get a gym class for our kids? Our kids deserve it, and we are here, and we're going to keep fighting for our kids every day until you get the contract together. Thank you.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio, which calls only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, and our coverage of a strike by teachers at the Chicago International Charter School Network, or CICS. Labor Express radio reporter Michelle Burke also spoke to Chris Bayern, chairman of the Charter Division of the Chicago Teachers Union, and CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates on the picket lines. Both of them called out CICS management, especially CEO Elizabeth Shaw, who's been absent from negotiations, and charter school operators in general, for financial shenanigans and shell games in the handling of public school funds.
Hello, my name is Chris Behrens. I'm the chair of the Charter Division of the Chicago Teachers Union. Look, the CTU has 12 contracts in charter schools. 11 of them are in negotiations right now. The first 2 had to go to a strike, right? What does that tell you? There's something wrong in Charterland, and I can tell you the problem is it's the charter operators. CICS is the worst amongst terribles. They're hiding $13.6 million by creating these for-profit sub-companies to hide tax dollars. Chicagoans don't like paying taxes, and when they do, they want it spent on education. They want it spent in the classroom. Well, unfortunately, the Board of Education does not exercise any accountability over the charter schools So we have to exercise the accountability. So we're out here in the streets right now because a budget is a moral document, and we're going to force the charter operators to value our students. They don't value them, we value them. We're going to change the way they operate. So charter industry, you're on blast. Here we come.
Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Davis Gates, Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union. It's 1 o'clock and we're still on strike. And we'll be on strike until CICS in this big building downtown figures out that the 30% that their 3 shell companies are skimming off the top has to come back to our classroom. We'll be on strike until our class sizes are smaller. We'll be on strike until we have special education resources. We'll be on strike till they understand that social workers and counselors are necessary parts of our communities inside of our schools. It is very clear to us that CICS receives substantially more money as a result of the new funding formula passed in the Illinois General Assembly and from the Chicago Public Schools. To say that you have a nearly $40 million surplus when your schools are being underserved means that you are not doing your job. It means that your governance is immoral and it does not reflect good practices in public education. Our members will be on strike until they can guarantee a smaller class size, until they can guarantee clinicians in our school communities, until they guarantee that we have special education resources in our communities. These people are here, our members are here because they are going to leverage their ability to bargain a contract to make sure that the policies of privatization, the policies of austerity are run out of Illinois, are run out of our school communities, just like Bruce Rauner was run out of here back in November. Thank you. Good afternoon. We are standing in front of Elizabeth Shaw's place of business because she refuses to come to the negotiating table. We are on day 5 of our strike, the second week of the strike. This is a problem. Our members need to be in the classrooms along with the students that we serve on an everyday basis. The reluctance of Elizabeth Shaw to come to the table means that she does not care about the education of the students that attend CICS. She must come to the table. The people that she sent to the table have been unable to close this deal. Again, we are in week 2 of the strike. If she doesn't come to the table, then we're going to assume that she's okay with the work stoppage and children not being in classrooms. Beyond that, the state of Illinois sends CICS funds. The Chicago Public Schools send CICS funds. The only way that this strike ends is with Elizabeth Shaw coming to the table. Thank you.
I want to thank Steve Dahlber of Labor Beat TV and Michelle Burke of Labor Express Radio for providing the previous audio segments. We need to take a station ID break, but when we return, we'll hear more from the striking CICS teachers, as well as from those who have been regularly holding rallies at the Gary Chicago International Airport to protest the use of that airport by ICE to deport undocumented immigrants from the greater Chicago area. So stay tuned. You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people and our coverage of a strike by teachers at the Chicago International Charter School Network, or CICS. Throughout their now 9-day-long strike, the teachers from CICS have tried to be creative with their tactics. This has included such things as delivering Valentine's last Thursday to city officials, asking them to use their influence to force CICS CEO Elizabeth Shaw to the negotiating table. It also includes a boisterous protest and sit-in at the downtown Chicago offices of the accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers on Wednesday. The reason for the choice of location being that Laura Thon, a PricewaterhouseCoopers partner, is also the board president of CICS. It's a stunning example of the relationship between corporate interest and school privatization, as well as an excellent public target and pressure point. Some of the most powerful speeches delivered by strikers during the strike were delivered at this rally, including the following speech in which a CICS teacher explains how the lack of maternity leave has put teachers' lives at risk.
The teachers that are working here at CICS are not granted the privilege of that. Last year we had a teacher named Miss Lindsay who was forced to work until her very last day to which she could actually hold her child. The management office told her that she had to use all of her sick days before they would honor anything else, and she did that with doctor appointments. The doctor then sent a notice to Human Resources saying that she could no longer work, otherwise she would risk losing her child and in turn killing herself. Management told her to come to work anyway. The doctor sent in 10 different requests asking them not to allow her to come to work, not to allow her to walk up the stairs. They said they would change her classroom and put her on the first floor. They lied. She continued to walk to the third floor until she began to bleed, and she could no longer work, and she had to be taken out by her husband, which in turn led her to the emergency room and an emergency C-section. That's unheard of. Why is it that upper management has over 6 weeks of maternity leave, but the teachers have none? You want us to invest all of our time, our heart, and our soul into our students, but we can't invest that into our own children? Teachers aren't allowed 6 weeks to recover and be with their own child? Or must we walk up 3 flights of stairs and die in childbirth? Must we walk up three flights of stairs and die bleeding to death? Must we risk the life of our own child, killing our own children, just to feed into corporate greed to make sure that we're there every day to teach other children, but we're not allowed to live to teach ours? That's unfair. Wrightwood, Ellison, Northtown, and Quest are being robbed by CICS. Wrightwood, Ellison, Northtown, Quest are being robbed by CICS. Wrightwood, Northtown, Quest are being robbed by CICS.
At the rally at PricewaterhouseCoopers, another CICS striker explained how the problem of class sizes and low staffing ratios harms students, especially those with special needs.
I am here today, like so many others, because we're tired of the overcrowded classrooms. At my school currently, there are some classrooms with 1 adult in the class, and we're being told it's a hiring freeze. We know that this is not true because they have the money to put 2 adults in each classroom. I'm a paraprofessional, and it has been times when I had to leave my student, which is a nonverbal student, alone. I come back into the classroom, I'm disappointed. He has had an accident on himself. I was told I had to go in between 3 rooms at one time to help with washroom breaks, which is unfair and it's a disservice to my students. Management, we're tired of them being greedy. We're tired of them taking all the money and not putting it back into the schools. Currently, we have non-working washrooms in our school, washrooms with no stalls on the door. I've been here 2 years at Wrightwood today, and it's still the same thing. Some of the washrooms are still not functional, still with no doors, and we're being told they don't have the money. We know this is not true. They're hoarding the money. Put it back into the schools. The kids deserve it. We're tired, and we're going to fight every day until this happens. Our school! 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 Who's student? Our student! Who's student? Our student! Who's student? Our student!
Perhaps the most powerful speech was that of a CICS striker who explained that teachers strike not only for their own gain, but to fight back against a racist system that has created the inequities that both teachers and students now face.
The reason we are all out here is because it's 2019 and people still have to fight for a living wage. We still have to fight for wraparound services in our schools. We still have to fight for health care, maternity and paternity leave. Shame on our city, shame on our country that teachers all across the country have to fight for basic human rights. Shame on our city and shame on our country for perpetuating a racist system that keeps our black and brown children from being successful. We are here fighting for a fair contract to make sure that we are not forced to choose between the students who we love and our own kids and our own families and our own future. We need equal pay for equal work. We need equal learning conditions for students who need it most. We need to make sure that we fight for our students because this would not fly in Naperville. And it surely doesn't fly at the CPS schools that Elizabeth Shaw sends her kids to because she's surely not coming to any of our schools. We're here fighting for a fair contract. It makes no sense that someone who's making 6 figures can sit here and ignore us when we're sitting here and we can't even pay our student loans because our wages are so low. It makes no sense that someone with six figures can steal public tax dollars and use it to feed her friends instead of feeding our students and contributing to our students. We need a fair contract now. We need to stop letting corporate crooks rob us blind, rob our students blind, and perpetuate a system that is destined to make black and brown kids die penniless, broke, and uneducated. Money for teachers, money for books, no more money for corporate crooks. Money for teachers, money for books, no more money for corporate crooks. Money for teachers, money for books, no more money for corporate crooks. Money for teachers, money for books, no more money for corporate crooks. Money for teachers, money for books, no more money for corporate crooks.
As of the recording of this program on Saturday, the teachers and support staff at the Chicago International Charter School Network were still on strike. I will try to keep listeners updated on developments through our Facebook page at laborexpress.org, so make sure to check out our page to keep abreast of the rapid developments in this important strike. Again, that page can be found easily at laborexpress.org. You're listening to Labor Express Radio, Chicago's only English language labor news and current affairs radio program. For the past several months, a coalition of groups including Chicago Jobs with Justice, Chicago Democratic Socialists, DSA, and Northwest Indiana, or NWI Resistance, has been organizing regular protests at the Gary Chicago International Airport. The reason being that ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has been using the airport to deport undocumented immigrants in their custody, despite the sanctuary policies of Chicago and most surrounding communities. The protests have attempted to call attention to this policy and put pressure on the City of Chicago, which operates the airport, to prevent the further use of the airport by ICE for this purpose. On a very cold January day, Labor Express radio reporter Michelle Burke attended one of these recent protests. The following are excerpts of some of the speeches delivered that day, starting with Susan Hurley of Chicago Jobs with Justice.
My name is Susan Hurley. I am with Chicago Jobs with Justice. I am proud to say that, come on, DSA, come around. I'm proud to say that we chartered the bus and came to Gary again with our comrades at Chicago Democratic Socialists of America, their anti-racism working group, the Immigrant Rights Committee. Also got friends from the Illinois Single Payer Coalition with us today, and the Bakery Workers Union, BCTGM. It is so cold. And you all deserve to take such pride and be willing to stand out here today for this cause. And I want to give a special shout out to our sisters Ruth and Lisa and others from Northwest Indiana Resistance. We're so proud to be here with you today. I just wanted to say a couple of things. And one thing that was going through my mind today is just, I was like, my goodness, it's cold. I'm standing out here today, even though it's dangerously cold, because we still have children and families in cages in this country. And it is a moral outrage and failing on the part of our country and our culture and our society that this is happening. And that's just the beginning. The administration has said that they've kidnapped from their parents even more children than they previously admitted. We don't know the fate of all of them. They don't know the fate of all of them. And this is happening on our watch, and it's our responsibility to do something about it. I think it's so important that we're doing this protest during the shutdown, in which our friends and neighbors who are immigrants, documented and undocumented, are being lied about and scapegoated and targeted with mass detention and mass deportation, which is why we're here in Gary. This is called the Gary Chicago International Airport, and that's why Chicago activists are here today. It's our responsibility to hold Chicago elected officials accountable, to end this contract with ICE and stop these deportations immediately. That's probably quite enough out of me for a day like today, but again, I just want to thank our comrades, and I want everyone here to know, and anyone who might hear this or see this, I am not going to stop. Chicago Jobs with Justice is not going to stop until the Chicago City Council, the Chicago mayor, takes our responsibility and ends the contract with ICE and stops the deportations in Gary. All right. It's wrong. All right. It has to end now. Yeah. And I'm not giving up, and I'm not stopping. This has to stop now.
for NWI Resistance, we have Cecilia Garcia with Family Reunification.
All right, Cecilia! Good morning, everyone. How cold is it, right? It's very, very cold. Thank you all for coming. This is what makes, to me, America great, the solidarity, the diversity. And I'm pissed. I am so upset because I am affected by family separation. My husband, 7 years ago, he was driving what we thought was a typical day. He called me. He's like, I'm on my way. What's for dinner? I still can't recall what I was making that night for dinner. He's like, I'll see you soon, babe. Love you. Dad was maybe about 5:30. 7 o'clock came, 9 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, he probably met with the boys. He's probably out drinking. At midnight, I see my caller ID, Evergreen Police Department. I said, oh, and I'm sorry for swearing, but that's exactly what came out of my mouth. He called me. He's like, I was pulled over. The plate had expired, and they're going to deport me. I'm like, what do you mean they're going to deport you? Yeah, I'm going to get deported. And I went, I don't know what, everything was so surreal. I don't know how I got there, but I think I got there in less than 10 minutes. I pleaded with the officer. I told them, you know, I'm filing a petition. I'm an American citizen. They said I couldn't do anything. So from what I was told, the officer pulled him over, asked him for his driver's license. My husband had no driver's license. Asked him if he was a documented person. And by him asking if he was documented, I already know he was racially profiled. That officer could have done two things. He could have just gave him a ticket when on his way home, went to court, but that officer decided to use his personal discretion and call ICE. Within 12 hours, my husband was in process for deportation. It didn't matter that he had 5 children waiting for daddy to come home. It didn't matter that he had an American citizen wife waiting. The only thing that officer cared about was that 30,000 daily bed quota that needs to be filled. This is a $2 billion industry that our tax dollars are being invested. I prefer to invest my money in free education and incarceration. I am tired of this. My children have gone without their father for 7 whole years. My children miss the fact that their daddy, used to say, I love you, good night, God bless. My daughters had 2 quintillions that I could not even, I have to be mom and dad to these children. And I'm an American citizen. I always felt as an American citizen I was privileged. And people ask me, and I get so tired of, why didn't you fix his papers? It's not an easy thing. I think it's probably easier for me to win the lottery than having somebody fix their status. Honest to God, I really do. And this is why I'm here, because I'm tired, and we need to fix these laws that are broken. It's a corrupt and broken system. It's a moneymaker. That's the reason why they don't want to make any new laws, because they make money. They profit out of modern day slavery. We are here with Family Reunification with Familia Latina Unida. We're going to Lobby Day in Washington. We're getting these new congressmen, these new senators that are in place to help us with the resolution that passed here unanimously in the city of Chicago. We want to end the deportations, but also bring back our deportees. They're not deported, they were abducted by ICE. Okay, if you're saying you want to keep the bad hombres out, my husband was not a rapist. My husband wasn't a drug dealer. My husband is a loving, working man that the only thing he was doing is providing for his family. And it's not fair. And this is why I get so upset, because I'm a woman of color, but if I was maybe a billionaire white man, not only have one person, not only one immigrant, but 2 immigrants to my side, and it's unfair. I should not be deprived of my husband. My husband should be here, and enough is enough. When we have children that are trying to attempt suicide, when we have Silas Norvik, who jumped out of the car in August of 2018 because he did not know how to cope with his father being detained. 14 years old, this young man took his life because he did not know how to deal with the separation of his father. Enough is enough. We are tired. We are tired. We are tired. Shame, shame, shame here, Gary, Indiana. Shame, 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 Chicago. This is not right. Families should not be separated. This is immoral. This is immoral. And God is watching all of you. I believe that what God has joined together, no man shall ever tear apart. And my husband's coming back, and these families will be reunited. I even if it's my last dying breath, I'm telling you here right now, as God is my witness, our families will be reunited. Thank you.
Unido, jamás conocido, jamás será vencido. All right, if we could bring up now Alfredo Estrada.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's stay warm, let's stay healthy. I want to just thank everybody from Northwest Indiana, from Chicago, to come out here today and support immigrants, immigrant rights, to voice their opinion for those who lack a voice. So thank you for that. I'm an immigration attorney here in the region, and about 2 years ago I met Ruth Needleman, and I said, man, that lady's crazy. That lady's crazy. But she's good to work with because she has a good heart. So Ruth and I passed and lobbied in Gary, Indiana for the Welcome City Ordinance, and the Gary City Council passed that. But we need them to go a step further. We need Gary to acknowledge that that ordinance has actual substantive law that they need to follow. And that means enacting that ordinance. So thank you for coming out and supporting immigrants. Everybody here needs to acknowledge that in this country we have babies being ripped from their parents' arms. That we have babies jailed because they're not from this country. To hell with that. This is the country we live in now. So I want everybody to be dedicated. If you're tired, we still got more to do. All right? Because there's others out there who are even more tired. If you're cold today, we still got more to do. Because there's babies in tents down there who are cold too. All right, so we have a voice. We have the ability to speak. It doesn't stop today. Go to your congressmen, senators, councilmen, everybody who holds an elected official position, and tell them what's going on in their city, that U.S. citizen kids are without their families, and it's because of a outdated and immoral immigration policy. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for having me.
Give it up for Alfredo. Yeah. Smash racist deportations. Working people have no nation. Smash racist deportations. Working people have no nations. Racist deportations. Working people have no nations. We're going to bring up now one of our crazies and organizers, Dr. Ruth Needleman.
I'm not crazy. I'm just addicted to social justice. And as I said in front of Mexico Lindo, where a raid took 5 people, including the owner of the restaurant, I am very, very angry. You don't want to be around me if you are causing that anger. And every day we read something new. Asylum seekers are going to have to wait in Mexico. That violates international law. Also, beside the raids and all this other stuff, I want to remind you that we have helped shut down 8 attempts to build a detention prison for immigrants. We are 8-0. GEO and the private prison industry is 0-8. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Okay. I have a statement from the coalition behind this. Of course, not everybody has seen it before, but you know. Okay. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, continues its inhumane and cruel practices. 2 young children dead in their custody. Thousands of children torn away from families and housed in tents and cages. And of course, now we find out that thousands more that were never reported were separated from their families. Hardworking community leaders continue to be swept up in raids. ICE is not targeting criminals, but family members. Tens of thousands have been deported from this airport by the jet center that has the contract with ICE. As of 2017, there had already been 20,000 deported. Cooperating with ICE today is not that different from those who cooperated with the fugitive slave laws well over a century ago. If you would have turned a slave over to its owners, that's the same as turning an immigrant over to ICE. We will not stand for that. The cities of Gary and East Chicago have welcoming city ordinances prohibiting ICE from commandeering local security forces for their work. Chicago is a sanctuary city, even more strongly prohibiting cooperation with ICE. Yet the raids, sweeps, and arrests, the family separations at the border, the refusal of legal asylum claims, all continue unabated, criminalizing and penalizing people who have committed no criminal act. We demand that the cities of Northwest Indiana and the greater Chicago area stop cooperating with ICE. We demand that the Gary Chicago International Airport halt its weekly deportations. We demand that our legislators open an investigation into the conditions that immigrants face in our jails, detention centers, at the border, and in the process of deportation. Focusing on the treatment of so-called deportees on both sides of the border. We know that people are pushed over in Brownsville into conditions that are highly dangerous due to hyper-gang activity. We condemn the Jet Center for profiting off the misery and abuse of immigrants by contracting with ICE for the deportation flights. You'll notice this new hangar, this new building, all of that was built with blood money. In supporting this statement, we commit to bringing these issues to city councils, legislators, mayors, and governors. This abuse must stop. Now. Okay, and we will be back, hopefully in slightly better weather. And I want to thank everybody for coming out here on such a frigid day. You are not just social justice warriors, you are Arctic social justice warriors. We will not stop. We will continue this protest, and please go back. We will put this statement up on our webpage, nwiresist.com. Make copies, get signatures, and please, we got to go after Chicago. We got to go after Gary. We have to go after the Jet Center and put a stop to this human abuse. Thank you, everyone.
I want to thank Michelle Burt for providing that audio. To find out more about these protests at the Gary Chicago International Airport, see the Labor Express Radio Facebook page at laborexpress.org. Before we wrap up tonight's program, I mentioned at the top of the program that the Denver teachers' strike wrapped up after 4 days on Thursday with a victory. It was the first teacher strike in Denver in 25 years. The new tentative agreement in Denver includes significant pay raises for teachers, more than 11%, but just as importantly, it overhauls the merit pay system that Denver had used, which resulted in uneven, inequitable, and fluctuating pay rates for teachers. You can find out more about the situation in Denver at our Facebook page again, which is laborexpress.org. Again, laborexpress.org. And certainly the National Teachers Revolt is an ongoing phenomenon that we'll be paying close attention to here on Labor Express, so make sure to keep checking our Facebook page for more updates on that whole situation. Well, that's all for tonight's program. Labor Express is a nonprofit 501c3 member of IBEW Local 1220. The views expressed on Labor Express are those of its producers and of IBEW. Labor Express is a production of the Committee for Labor Access in Chicago, the world capital of the labor movement. The song's theme is called Worker Song. It's written by Ed Pickford and recorded by the Dropkick Murphys. Tune in next Sunday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Labor Express.